Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I am Judah. We're going to talk about the 1963 gothic horror that was a Roger Corman production, The Terror.
Come in. I surprised her in her home. She was not alone. With my own hands, I killed her.
Starring Boris Karloff.
Take this gun. Escort this gentleman from the castle. If he resists, kill him.
The Terror. His evil mystic powers go beyond man's wildest imaginings.
This trailer is misleading already. Huh. Interesting.
The Terror. Empowered to avenge, to reward, to transform.
I do love you.
That apparently is Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage. That was Jack Nicholson's, at that time, his wife. Apparently he convinced Corman to hire her for this. And this is the only time they ever were in a film together.
Blood and flesh beauty a man can enjoy.
I am possessed of the dead.
Or is she a gossamer myth, created by a madman's distorted desires?
Take your life as you took mine, and bring us together forever.
Join Boris Karloff, the Frankenstein monster of all horror motion pictures, in his most blood-chilling screen experience.
I did love this scene in particular because these big chunks of rock that are falling down, this plays into the movie heavily, which I'm assuming you are guessing since it's in the trailer. But in these wide shots, they're in the catacombs of this castle, and part of the plot is to get Boris to flood the catacombs to kill himself. And these rocks that are falling down, they're just like floating on top of the water, which is quite funny. That scene right there, it was just the intro to the movie and has no bearing on anything whatsoever. It was so absurd, had no point, didn't move anything forward, plot or anything. We never hear anything else about it. Rest of the movie makes no sense. When I started researching about this movie, there is a lot of good stuff on Wikipedia. I mean, when I started reading about the production of this movie, I got so much enjoyment because it explains a lot of the weirdness that I felt while watching the movie in general. Corman wrote in his memoirs that The Terror began as a challenge to shoot most of a gothic film in 2 days using leftover sets from The Raven. It turned into the longest production of my career. An ordeal that required 5 directors, 9 months to complete, but like Little Shop of Horrors is a classic story of how to make a film out of nothing. So it says here that Roger Corman had enjoyed considerable success in the early 60s, producing and directing films based on stories of Edgar Allan Poe. House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, Premature Burial, Tales of Terror, The Raven, as well as Poe-influenced Tower of London. Corman wrote in his memoirs that he was inspired to make The Terror because I was getting so familiar with the standard elements of Poe's material, or at least are adaptations that I tried to outpo himself to create a gothic tale from scratch. Corman was making The Raven, featuring sets built by Daniel Haller. The weekend before filming was scheduled to end on The Raven, Corman intended to play tennis with a friend, but the game was rained out. Corman came up with the idea of shooting footage of a movie star on the sets of The Raven over 2 days, which can then be used as a base for another movie. I love the fact, now Corman is, man, he's known for this cheap, dirty filming. Like, get out there, just get the stuff done, and then piece together what you can. And some of this lends to some iffy movies, but at the same time, it leads to some magical moments. It's very fun. This kind of, let's take advantage of what we have here because of budget constraints, but with this forethought of the future, but not even knowing where that future is leading, but just like, hey, let's see if we can scrape some things together and hopefully we can do something with it. I love it. It's so fun. Corman contacted Leo Gordon, and an actor and writer had written several films for the director, including Cry Baby Killer and The Wasp Woman, and asked him if he had a script with a castle in it. Gord did not, but went over to Corman's house for a brainstorming session. Corman asked Gordon for a 60-page script written by the following weekend, which could be shot over 2 days. Corman says the only other requirement was that the script finish with a flood, as several Poe pictures had finished with a fire sequence, and he wanted to do something new. As a kid, definitely, if I knew that this Svengoolie movie that was playing was a Poe story, I was always like, ugh, bummer. Corman reportedly paid Gordon $1,600 for the script. According to Dick Miller's account of Making the Terror, Corman called Chuck Griffith and said, "Write me a bunch of scenes for Boris Karloff and this castle." Chuck said, "What's the story?" Roger said, "No story, just a lot of castle, in and out of doors, very mysterious." And that's exactly what he did. Gosh, I just love this. This gives me so much joy. I mean, it's terrifying. And this almost feels like how Disney shoots their Marvel movies at this point. I just shoot a bunch of stuff and we'll throw it together. Corman apparently did a way better job than what Marvel and Disney does. So anyway, it's very funny. The main role in Gordon's script was of the Baron. All of Corman's Poe films, except The Premature Burial, was starring Vincent Price. But Vincent was unavailable, so Corman made a deal with Boris Karloff, who had been in The Raven, to be available for 2 days filming for a small amount of money, plus a deferred payment. Gordon's script had 3 other characters, 2 male, 1 female. Corman hired Jack Nicholson and Dick Miller, with whom he had worked several times previously, to play the other male roles. Nicholson suggested his then-wife, Sandra Knight, for the female role, and Corman agreed. The plan was to shoot 60 pages of script over 2 days, then shoot the rest at a later date when the rest of the script was complete and other sets were available. This is just so great to me. So great. Now, as far as there's more stuff in here that just tickles me. I just find it so enjoyable. Corman did not get permission from those who backed the filming of Raven. He did not get permission to use the sets for The Terror. So during a wrap-up party, let me see if I can find this for you. The Raven had been financed by American International Pictures, but The Terror was financed by Corman privately, albeit using sets that AIP had paid for without asking for their permission. Samuel Z. Arkoff of AIP later said he became suspicious when he was attending the wrap party for The Raven and noticed that the sets had not been taken down. He says he later discovered Corman was using AIP sets for the director's own movie, but Arkoff knew Corman would put that film in a vault, finish, and come to AIP with a distribution deal. So it turned out to be our picture anyway. So Corman's just like going behind the scenes, shooting other films, not telling people about it. Later on, there's a story, because it said 5 directors. Corman has to take off, and then the follow-up shoots, because, what was it? It was so interesting. He couldn't do it because Corman was part of the union, which would have meant that he had to use union workers, but because of the budget, he couldn't afford it, so he got somebody who wasn't union so that they could hire non-union workers. Says Corman still needed more footage for the flooding sequence, but then Coppola accepted a job at 7 Art and was no longer available. So when Corman left, he hired Francis Ford Coppola to pick things up, which apparently Coppola was making a lot of decisions on his own. It was going over budget and stuff, and it was pissing Corman off. Coppola recommended a friend from UCLA, Dennis Jacob, who Corman hired to shoot shots of water at Hoover Dam. Corman says Jacob took 3 days, used Corman's cameras and equipment. I love this, to shoot his thesis movie on the side. Corman was annoyed, but knew that this was something he would do himself. I love that. That cracks me up. Corman totally full well knew. He was pissed off that this dude is using his equipment to shoot his thesis, and yet he was like at least aware enough to be like, okay, it pisses me off, but gosh dang it, I would have done the same thing, so okay, fine. I love this. This behind-the-scenes stuff is just golden to me. I would tell you to watch this film. It's not a super engrossing film because, honestly, like it says here on Wikipedia, 5 directors. It even talks about at one point when Corman was finally putting everything together that the storyline didn't make sense, so then he had to come back in and film some last-minute scenes, but the sets are gone, so they had to use close-ups to come up with a new scenario to make some of the stuff make sense. And reading this, actually, even though the movie isn't fantastic, okay, it does have that, obviously the 1963s, it has that 60s gothic horror film that I enjoy, the aesthetics of it, and the set was amazing. But the story in general was very just weird. There's like massive weird twist ending that it's like, it's just so weird. And it makes it makes sense from one aspect, from another aspect, it makes zero sense. Like there's this woman, based on the trailer, Boris Karloff is telling Nicolas Cage, Jack, dang, I keep doing it. It's telling Jack Nicholson that he came home from war and found his wife with another man, and he murdered his wife. And now he's being tortured by her ghost. So this movie leads you in the scenes that you're watching. You're like, is this a ghost? Or is Karloff's conscience just haunting him? But then Jack Nicholson is having encounters with this, so this is clearly a being, and it's not just Boris Karloff's conscience that's bothering him. But then there's also this other woman, and you're like, or is she like manipulating and gaslighting Boris to make him go crazy? You don't really know. You're like, is this really a ghost story, or is this just behind the scenes like conspiracy stuff? And then at the end, there's these, I guess the second one you could call a twist or just a clarification on what it was that was occurring, versus ghost story or just manipulation and gaslighting. So it's really, really weird. And I'm about to give you the spoiler, but I highly recommend just for the enjoyment, not necessarily the film, but watching the film and reading this Wikipedia and other information about this movie, it has become very entertaining for me to place the behind the scenes stories with what I'm seeing on screen and being like, oh, okay, now that makes sense why that was so weird. So as the movie is progressing, you think it's going one direction. But then all of a sudden, some random guy's name gets brought up, Eric. And this is like halfway through the movie. And I'm just left with this sense of, who's Eric? Where did this guy Eric come from? Suddenly this name is being floating around. I don't know who this Eric is. And it slowly comes to light that Eric was the man that Boris' wife was having an affair with. Okay, then suddenly I'm like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. But you don't know this until almost like the end of the movie. This other times, every time somebody talks about Eric, you're just like, who's Eric? Where? What? It's so confusing. So the witch, or this other woman that's in it, she is manipulating a young woman to act as the ghost of Boris's late wife. Why? Spoilers, because Eric was her son. So she wants Boris to kill himself, because going off of the Catholic religion or expectations, or the Catholic belief that if you kill yourself, you can't go to heaven. So she didn't even just want him to die. She wanted him to be damned to hell. So she was getting this girl to drive him insane to kill himself, because the girl would go to him and be like, kill yourself so that we can be together again forever. And this had been going on for like 2 years. And finally it got to the point where Boris is like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'll kill myself. We'll be together forever. But like I said, the plan was from this witch was to get him to kill himself and be damned to hell, which is so brutal. And quite frankly, if I'm going to be honest, if I was going that direction, that sounds like something I would do myself, which is really insane and horrible that I would want to condemn somebody to hell. Anyway, so you find at this point, you're like, okay, it is just this old lady gaslighting. Then stuff gets even crazier. At the end of the movie, we got Jack Nicholson, we got this old lady, we got the butler all together. Turns out the butler reveals that during the struggle, when Boris Karloff came home and found his wife with this other man, Boris kills his wife. And the butler killed Eric. That's the story. So then the old lady's like, oh, I've been trying to condemn the wrong man to hell this whole time. Dang it, that's 2 years down the drain. Stuff gets even crazier. It's so insane. I love the insanity that Corman had to come up with to make these shots from 5 different directors make sense. So here's the biggest ass weird twist ever. Boris Karloff actually is Eric. Okay? So this is how it goes. The woman's husband comes back from war, finds her with Eric. He murders his wife, and then Eric murders the husband. But he is so stricken with guilt that he was, one, having an affair with this man's wife, and then murdered him. He hatches a plan with the butler. I'll just take the Baron's place and I'll stay locked in this castle and never go out. I'll just stay here for 20 years. So during that time, he mentally breaks and now thinks that he is the Baron. It's so absurd. So this old lady's son is still alive. Eric is still alive, living as the Baron. That's the big twist. This is what's so great. When this comes to light, I'm like, are you insane? How old is Boris Karloff? How old is this woman that's supposedly his mom? This is the reality of it. Boris Karloff, at the time of this filming, was 76. He was 76, okay? He looks it in the film. And there's nothing, we're aging. This is something I am dealing with. And it is hitting me hard. The idea that I am no longer a young man. God, it sucks. Anyway, so he's 76. The woman who plays his mother, 47. There was no amount of makeup that was covering that up. As I'm watching this movie and that twist gets revealed, I was like, what? This man could literally be her father. And you're trying to convince me that she is his mother? It's the funniest thing. When that happens, you are just like, what? It is so great. So that's the first twist. Then there's another twist after that, which you're just going to have to watch the movie and find out what that is. Ooh. The whole experience of this movie was enjoying to me. I enjoyed the whole experience, not just the movie, watching the movie, and not just reading this information, but the combination of watching the movie and then reading about it. I found a lot of enjoyment. The movie just by itself, I found quite slow and plotting and very confusing, but so I'm only going to give it a 4 out of 10. But when you combine that with the behind the scenes, I get a lot of enjoyment out of this. And I'm glad and I'm thrilled to be able to share this with you. It's very fun to me. Like I told you, it's not a great movie. It is very slow. Corman definitely had to piece together things. And the fact that he came out with a movie as cohesive as this is quite amazing. And I applaud him and all of his tactics throughout his career. And he just passed like last year. No, in May, I think it was, he passed, which is too bad because we need more people like that. I didn't know him personally. He could have been a major a-hole, but I just mean with the ingenuity and the go-get-itness of him, I can appreciate that spirit there. I give this a 4 out of 10. I can't recommend it, but if you love the behind-the-scenes things, I definitely recommend it as a double watch the movie, read the behind-the-scenes stuff. In that aspect, I had a ton of fun reading and understanding. If I was to judge it together as like the lore of the terror, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Okay, so if that's the kind of thing that you're into, definitely give this a try. If you made it this far in this video, thank you so much. I appreciate the time that you have given me. If you want to leave a comment, I will also respond to you because in my appreciation, I want to give you my time as well. Thank you so much. If you have suggestions, you can also leave those in the comments. I am Judah. This has been Creepin' It Real, and I'll see you later.